Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and a very warm welcome on behalf of VLA Virtual Legal Advisory and Sana Pirzada Legal Solutions. Today, we are discussing a very important platform and a very important person, Uzma Noorani. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, and glad you have me on this panel. And I'll talk about my shelter and other issues related to women's rights.
It is such an honor to have you, honestly speaking. And just a brief introduction about you to the audience who may not be aware of your very esteemed existence. Mashallah, you are the founder and the trustee of Panah Shelter. You are the founding member of Women's Action Forum, and you are also a former co-chairperson of the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. So, Mrs. Noorani, thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. As I said, it is an absolute honor for me. Thank you again.
Welcome.
Okay, so Mrs. Noorani, the thing is that over the last couple of years, first of all, domestic violence is something that is so prevalent, and we see this around us in Karachi as well. In fact, this is one of the reasons why the divorce rate is so high. As a lawyer and as somebody who women trust and they share their personal issues with, many women have approached me over the years, either trying to discuss their legal recourse or trying to find a platform or a home, in fact, where they can, find some sort of refuge. And when I met you last year, I mean, this was such a coincidence that I realized that many people within Pakistan and within Karachi are completely oblivious to the existence of Panah Shelter. And this is why I wanted to actually keep this webinar as an awareness raising session so that people can know how to help others. And I'd like to start by asking you, could you tell us a little bit about the history of Panah Shelter and about yourself, in fact, what inspired you to be a part of the human rights campaign in Pakistan, and how and why did you establish Panah? Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, it seems like that was another century ago when I came into this business, came forward to fight for women's rights. Actually, I was married into a family that was very politically active. My mother-in-law was she had her own organization. So in around 1981, Women's Action Forum came about, And I was previously, she had asked me about it. I had very small children at that time. So she said, this is something that maybe if you can, it would be good for you. My organization is, more political in the sense they were part of a communist party and I was not a part of the communist party. So therefore, for me, the platform of WAF was very appealing, Women's Action Forum, that came about around 1981 against the discriminatory laws of Ziaul Haq. Basically, that's when few women came together, and this, especially in response to a case, Famida Allah Baksh, where she was sentenced, her husband was sentenced to stoning and I don't know how many lashes. So that these kind of we had not heard of such practices or such punishments. It was like medieval times. So in the name of Islamization, Ziaul Haq was basically pushing women behind chadar and chardiwari, making them, confining them to limiting their spaces and taking away their rights that were already existing. So that was when we got together. And then we've never looked back in Women's Action Forum. Then once we were established as an organization, we carried the work forward. Initially, it was groups women's rights groups that were working, like Business the Professional, APWA, and there were a few other organizations that were already there, and Tehreek-e-Niswan. And that's how some women and organizations got together, and that's how WAF was born. And then since I've joined WAF, there's never been any looking back, I've always been very active in supporting the rights of women, working for the cause, helping them, holding their hands, going out, to assist them. Can you imagine, like 40 years ago, women could not even access police stations because it was like, okay, when a woman went there, ये तो आपका घर का मामला है, you know. So it was something that even the police was not sensitized, the courts were not sensitized. So we had to do a lot of, work on laws and to, demand that we should have more women-friendly laws. There should be more awareness about women's rights, and that sort of campaign we have to forward. And because I was like, for me, it was the hands-on experiences where I felt that where I, could be most helpful. And so there were a lot of times when governments came and they cracked down on many of the NGOs. Although WAF is not an NGO, it's a non-funded organization. It's a voluntary group of women who work together. And we still meet every Monday and discuss issues related to women. And we don't have an office or anything like that, but we have our homes. Or now, because after COVID, it's been Zoom. So we have Zoom meetings and we meet in the people, members' homes. So that's how it is. WAF is still for flourishing. And that, because of my work in WAF, I got involved with Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, which came about a few years later. And again, we were again with Human Rights Commission. It was women's issues where I was, working with them. And then I was invited to join the council. I contested for the council as a council member. So like I was there for 22 years. And before I left the council, I was the co-chairperson for 3 years. So that was another very, very important experience for me to be able to work with, people like Asma Jangir, Zohra Yusuf, pioneers, and people I looked up to, Hina Jilani, all these people. They were all like, we were all the same age, but, they had a lot of experience and one could learn so much from them. So there I was in the Human Rights Commission working on so it was not just women's rights, and we were looking at human rights of, in general. And especially my focus was always because women's rights are human rights. So it was related, my work. There was no sort of, I didn't feel like I'm doing one thing and not the other. It was doing both the things. So I continued my work with Human Rights Commission and WAF. And then during this work of mine, there was a time when we had no, like, women would, like, when you talk about raising awareness and you raise the awareness and the woman comes to you and says, look, I want to leave my home, but where do I go? Where can where can I find refuge? And that's where we used to get stuck. There were so many times, a couple of us friends, we used to keep them in our homes also, women, but then that was taking a risk, So that idea of a shelter was there, that we have, how we wish we had a private shelter where we could, So this opportunity came along in around 2000. And I remember had been working in the Humera Butt case. That was very infamous case where a girl had married of her own choice, and she was brought to ED home in Karachi. And while she was there, her father was an MPA, her uncle was an MPA, like they were landed people from Punjab. So he sort of, in those days, there was governor's rule in Sindh, and so he ordered the police from Punjab to come here. There was that infamous Rana Maqbool was IG at that time. And they came here and they raided the ED shelter and took away Humera from there. And then Ziawan, he approached us. He called me, look, this has happened. What do we do? Early morning, I get this call from Ziawan. So we all gathered at press club and we met there. And I mean, there's a long story of her case. Eventually, we managed to help her through that. And at that time, going to the Darul Aman was not an easy act. The store was not accessible easily. And so there was this thing, okay, now, what do we do? So when the opportunity came along by Amnesty, and we had Dr. Habiba Hassan over here, who was working for Amnesty at that time, or she was a representative or something. So she said, Amnesty's got a donor who saw the report on honor killings in Pakistan, and he wants to do something for women. So there was a meeting of all the NGOs, and I was one of persons at that meeting. And we said the best way to help them is to provide a shelter. Because if you have a shelter, then you can escape. So that's how the idea of a shelter came about. And then some of us got together. I remember Asma called me and said, Uzma, can you? It was Angelica at that time. She was forgetting her role there in university, and we were in touch with her. And she was a good friend of Asma. Anyway, some of us HRCP में meetings हुई, फिर we met at Shirkatgah. The first meeting was at Shirkatgah. But then gradually nobody was really willing to take on the responsibility of owning the shelter. No? It had to be a new body. So some of us, Aurat Foundation, Shirkatgah, all of us had meetings, and I decided to go to. I was working also closely with CPLC, and Jamil Yusuf was the chief at that time, and I knew he was very helpful. And he also had the same problem. He would call me, Uzma, come and help. I have this case. So I would go to him. So I told him, I said, look, this is it. Can you help me in this? And he said, sure. Then we started having our meetings at the CPLC. And within a year, we came up with this idea, and a trust was formed. And we invited Justice Marja Rizvi as a chairperson. So it was initially the founders like Habiba Hassan, Jamil Yusuf, and myself. We sort of were part of those meetings. And finally, we established the trust. The donor backed out, but we didn't back out, and we continued our work. And things doors just opened. Then Infaq Foundation came forward with a very nice, well furnished old people's home that was lying vacant at the IDRU. And they said, if IDRU agrees to let you use it, you can go ahead and use it. And IDRU gave us that opportunity, and so we started from there. And we were there for almost 5-6 years, and then IDRU also didn't want us to be there, because after all, it was IDRU is a institution for the deaf and the mute, blind. So therefore, we were wondering if kahan jaye, shelter, where do we move, finding a place was the problem. But luckily, then there was some Rabi Javeri was on the managing committee, and she was working for the governor. And at that time, the city district government was running the Darul Aman Karachi, and they were also finding it difficult to manage it. And we were a very successful shelter with well-reputed people who were running it. So they said, okay, then that's when a public-private partnership was established, and it was in 2006 that we signed an MOU. By 2008, we moved into the Darul Aman premises. We had to spend a lot of money to renovate the place. We managed to generate funds. We asked philanthropists, and we asked the Rotary community to come forward. My husband happened to be in the Rotary Club Sunset Millennium, so they did a joint matching grant for us, and that gave us a big boost, and we started our work. And then no looking back since then. We've just moved forward. And like you said, even though we have like maybe 40, 45 women at any given time, yet that's just a drop in the ocean if you look at the size of the population. That means there are so many women who are not reaching out to us. So that is a dilemma that we have to deal with. But people like for Panah, it is you can come through directly. You can come through because Darul Amans take cases of court order. So because we are Darul Aman also, so court order, NGO referrals. So these are the cases that come to us, and we are operating 24/7. And our services that we offer, I would. If you haven't visited Panah, you must go and see what all we are doing there. It's a very, very nice facility. We provide all kinds of services to help build the women's confidence when she comes to us. So if you want any other, should I add some more? I can tell you that like we were registered under Trust Act of 1882. And then later on, the Sindh Trust Amendment Act 2021. Now, this was important to be able to, of course, we run on funds, and we'll have local funding. That is what we usually depend on. We don't have any foreign funding as such. Although we've applied, but all these UN bodies and all, they don't help us. They just help the governments. Although I mean, like I tell them, like, look, we are also Darul Uman, which is under, it is also a government institute. But their way of operating is very different. And like they say, no, this is a service delivery, so therefore we cannot fund you. They for developmental projects and things like that. So getting funds for a shelter was not easy. It was an uphill task. And when we started, we have very, like, of course, the Rotary funding was a big boost, but then that much of it was consumed in renovating the place. So, like, it was a struggle initially, but we managed to, keep our doors open. Never did we refuse any woman who came to us. Basically, we take women from all over Pakistan. Panah, because, Karachi is a cosmopolitan city. So we have all kind, different communities who come to us, different. And therefore, for our approach is very different. We don't judge them. We have a very
Absolutely.
non-judgmental approach. We do not sort of, push them to do anything against their wishes.
Yeah.
So we build their confidence when they come to us. Our job is to make them, hold their head up, move forward, and help them along the way. The help that we provide is legal help, pre-legal help, psychological counseling, vocational training, daily, like 3 times a week, we have a doctor who comes to visit us. Then we have 3 times a week, we have a counselor for, psychosocial counseling. Then we also have a yoga teacher who comes and does yoga. The vocational program cover sewing, because most of the women are not literate. Many of them, majority are illiterate, I would say. No? And so then we have to build on whatever their skills are. And sewing embroidery is one skill that most of the women know. So we build on that. We train them to improve themselves, to maybe, get better, and when they move out. If we have the funds, we provide them a machine so that at least, they can stand on their own once they leave the shelter.
Mrs.
So,
Noorani, honestly, this, your narrative is so inspirational because um, we try to find, people like you in Pakistan, people who we can look up to, role models. And I have met you on previous occasions, and I know that you're a wonderful person. But
thank
I
you.
never actually heard, I've never heard your narrative firsthand before today. So it is a huge awakening for all of us that this, we have a long road, we have a long road to go to, because there is just so much that needs to be done in Pakistan, especially when it comes to women, when it comes to children, when it comes to those who are suffering in different ways. And again, there is this huge gap over here when it comes to the legal system, and when it comes to the social welfare system as well. And you mentioned that most of the women in Panah shelter, they are from underprivileged areas. And believe it or not, I mean, again, this is something that we know as lawyers, that when it comes to cases of domestic violence, people or women, irrespective of your social class, irrespective of your, social backgrounds, they're approaching us, and they want, details about this shelter, and it's just so harrowing. And in fact, just coming to that, you mentioned that either the women can contact you directly, or they can come through the police. And I just wanted you to explain a little bit about the procedure, that once somebody comes to you, for how long can they actually stay at Panah? You did mention that you offer different courses and different amenities over there. So for how long can they stay at any one time? And then what happens to them after Panah? If you can just talk briefly about that, that'll be great.
Okay. Uh, like our doors are open to any woman who faces violence, and she has to just, come to us. Either, like you mentioned, police can bring her in, court orders get through. She comes directly. She can call us up and say, "Look, I have a problem, and I need shelter. I don't have any place to go, and I need to." Sometimes they have decided that they want to file a khula. Most of the women who come to us have decided for themselves that they want to get out of this situation, from from the domestic violence, And so like we call them survivors. So they come, and we call them residents when they are residents of Panah once they come to us. So any woman of any background can come to us. Like right now, I have a family of 2 children and a young woman who is she was a teacher. I mean, she's Montessori directress, that, and she's from a very family. This is this. I would say like maybe let's say a very educated family, right? But sometimes women don't know where to go, because even if they go to the parents' house, they may feel threatened over there. So those are the cases from privileged backgrounds that also come to Panha, because the parents are willing to keep them, but they are feeling threatened by the husband and the family. So that's when they come to us. So we've had doctors, we've had teachers. So there are some of these cases also that we take. Meeting days for women, 3 times a week, the relatives come and meet them. But again, you see, women, when they come to us, they are very, like, obviously in a very traumatized and difficult situation. They've been through so many years of violence, subjected to abuse and, all forms of violence. They've lost their self-confidence, and it takes a while for them to collect their, themselves basically. And that is what Panha gives that support to them. When they come there, she can just walk in, feel comfortable. Then after a while, we listen to a story, and then from there, then we have to see, okay, we give them a week to decide, okay, what do I do now? I've come to the shelter. What should be the next step? We don't rush them into anything. We have to, like, all our staff is trained to be non-judgmental, to gender sensitized, So that is very important, that your feminist approach is there in Panha, which is not, you don't find that in many shelters. So we have that kind of policy, and the women feel very comfortable. They don't feel threatened. They don't feel like they're being forced into making any decisions. So that is our policy, and when our policy, like, they can stay 3 to 4 months. Why we don't want to make it a permanent place?
Yeah,
it's a transitional sort of a thing. So 3 to 4 months is normally when they come. Most of the women come, they want khula. And so 3 to 4 months lagta hai na khula. So that's why we've kept this period. They can stay longer, they can stay less, they can leave in one day. It's up to them, Court order cases have to be referred to the court if the girl wants to leave. So she has to tell the judge that I want to leave the shelter, and once the court allows her to leave it, then she leaves. But for Panha, it is like, we don't, like we say, हमारा approach है कि हम किसी को force नहीं करते ना. She's free to come and go at her own free will. Free will is very important. Basically, I think any woman should not, tolerate violence. She has to speak out against it. And unfortunately, in our society, women endure violence for a long time before they can take that step of leaving their homes, and think of moving out and standing on their own. It's not an easy task, Depends on their class structure also. Like we are dealing with mainly lower income strata, and so like, I feel that abuse is, you can't say that abuse is happening only in this section of society. It's rampant. Even, like I always say, कि ऊंची दीवारों के पीछे क्या होता है वो हमें पता नहीं चलता है. It is these small, जो छोटे-छोटे घरों में रहते हैं, they can hear each other, and they know they can share their stories also more easily. There is more abuse, but it's not hidden. Whereas depend on the class, upper class, it's hidden. It's not talked. For women of that class, it is more difficult to come out and move forward. And वो stigma है ना हमारी society में, divorced women, and that stigma, I think today it should not be a stigma anymore. Should be considered an emancipation for a woman when she can leave her abusive relationship and stand on her own. And that is very important, that women should reach out. Women who need Panhas, they can reach out to Panha. I can share the number with you. It's 02136360025 and 26. That's will 24-hour helpline sort of where the housekeepers answer. They can come at any time of the 24 hours open to take women in. They can come in the middle of the night also. And once they are there, they will feel safe. That Panah, we have a very well-trained staff who knows how to, look after the residents. It's not, it's like a boarding facility. People don't have individual rooms, but it's like a dormitory place. And we have created a very nice environment for the women over there, where they feel more confident once they come there. We offer them trainings. Those who want to do other, if they want to go for advanced classes, they can do that. And basically, the idea is that you come there and you regain your self-confidence through counseling, and keeping knowing that there's support for you. That's the most important thing. You know that somebody is there to support you and help you through this whole process. And Panah offers that. We are non-judgmental. We try to build their confidence. We have counselors who do that, and it's not it's a place for every section of society can come. That doesn't mean that upper class women cannot come and stay there. It's a very nice and clean environment that we have. बहुत cleanliness पर बहुत हमें जोर है. So it's open. The doors are open to everyone who needs protection.
And everybody, irrespective of social class in our society, needs protection, because we are seeing a growing number of cases of domestic violence and divorce, from all segments of society.
Yeah, like we do not like caste, creed, religion. These are not things that it's a woman who needs help, and we are offering them that help, and they can come to us. They can even just call us and take guidance from us. Okay, what is the best thing? Like we have a team of lawyers also, no? Pro bono lawyers who help us during the cases. We also guide them. If they're looking for just legal help, we guide them. Okay, this is the place that you like. LAS is there, people who are offering these services. I mean, there's now we have a helpline by the Sindh government where women can call also. That those numbers should be run. If you're doing this program, you should run all those numbers. That these are the helplines that Sindh government is also offering, and then they refer the cases to us if required. So reaching out, they have to reach out and find what is available. Educated women can always go and look at our website, those who have access, and see and look for a place, and Panah will there, and you can see all the services that Panah offers. So that's the thing. And people like avenues like this can inform people about Panah, like what you are doing right now.
No, thank you so much for this. I mean, the numbers that you shared were, extremely helpful, and I will, add those to this post when I share this, the link to this webinar. I wanted to actually, I know I've taken so much of your time, and you could, go on, and there's so much more that we can. Yeah, well, yes, and we need to hear a lot more, but suffice it to say that the way I see these situations is, and this is the advice that I'd like to give to women, is that please, speak out about whatever's happening to you. And the reason is that there's a sort of domino effect. If you don't, the next person will also not be able, not feel comfortable and not feel confident to come out with their story. And, this leads to depression. It leads to, suicide. It leads to horrible things. So we don't want that to happen. And I would say this to other people as well, to bystanders who are seeing people suffering. Please don't be quiet. Don't think that just because it's not happening to you, it's not your problem, because it is our problem. And it's not only, an action that is a criminal, morally, ethically, and legally, but it's also your omission or your refusal to act that is potentially criminal. So try and help one another. This is what my message is to people in general, especially when it comes to cases of gender-based violence, domestic violence. Mrs. Noorani, you have been doing a fantastic job. So once again, hats off to you, hats off to Panah Shelter and the other people who are involved in your project. In fact, before we conclude, if you could just talk a little bit more about funding as well, as to how people can help
Yeah. I was thinking
further
that
that
I want
cause.
to add that, and maybe
Yeah.
when you can run it, that we are tax exempt. Any donation to Panna is tax exempt, and I can let me see. Mhm. I'll give you our. Maybe I'll share it with you. It's a non-profit organization. All donations being taxed in Pakistan under the income tax ordinance, and I can give you the bank details also if you can, run that.
Yeah, you can share those and
That
then
will be
I'll add that
better.
in.
Yeah,
Yes,
and I
that
would
would be.
also like to mention my board of trustees that has helped us. That because of them that we know the shelter is running so successfully. Our chairperson is Justice Martha Rizvi, and then I'm the and we have two managing trustees. The other managing trustee is Nadra Panjwani, who's a philanthropist and educationist. Then we have Jamil Yusuf, uh, former CPLC, so he's one of the founder members. Then we have Dr. Naiza Niaz, and we have Justice Shaikh Usmani. So these are the board members, and now we have a managing committee that oversees, the daily activities of the shelter. So we have a manager. Like our staff is not very big, but I can tell you like our budget. I can even tell you our budget what it is, and you can add that if you want to know. 20 lakhs last year, something like that. 200, 20 million only tha na. Our overall budget. We keep our expenses low. We get a lot of donations also, that help us through this whole thing. So I feel this project belongs to the community, and everybody should come forward to help women who are in need of protection. And it is not just our duty, but it is everyone's duty to help them. And the way you can help them is they can come and volunteer their time. I want people to donate generously to Panha, basically, to help us meet our needs. Like I told you, we do not have any international funding as such. We depend on local funding.
No, thank you for sharing those bank details. Again, I will add all of these details, and that this is why I specifically asked you about the funding as well, because on such a scale that you're working on and helping so many women, it's important for us to know how can we as individuals or other organizations, assist Panha. So, and you mentioned Justice Marza Rizvi, so that's amazing. We know how inspirational she is. And again, in Pakistan, we need more women like her and like you. So thank you so much, Mrs. Noorani, for taking out so much of your precious time and talking in detail about Panha. And before we conclude, I'd just like to say to the audience that if you have any questions for Mrs. Noorani, you can always add those in the comment section. I will share the numbers that she has mentioned. And if you'd like to reach out to her, she's available on LinkedIn as well. And just some concluding words from you before we log off, if there's anything that you'd like to say before we log off.
Yeah, I think women have to realize that they have to speak out. Without speaking out against violence, they will not be able to fight back. We live in a patriarchal society, and we need to fight that. We need to fight patriarchy at so many different levels. And it's important for women to have confidence in themselves and not to tolerate violence. That's very important.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Noorani. So on behalf of VLA Virtual Legal Advisory and Sana Pirzada Legal Solutions, thank you so much to everybody who has seen this webinar. And thank you so much, Mrs. Noorani, once again for taking out your time and for this brilliant, brilliant session. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sana. Wish you all the best. Hafiz.
All the best. Thank you.
Hmm.
Partner violence, you find it difficult to say it to your family members as well, because you feel like you're sort of staining yourself. It's a stain on yourself, which it isn't, but it's the way our